Check this out. I don't know if you can tell. Can you see this giant red splotch right here?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's poison oak.
I was gonna say it's as it tis the season for poison oak.
Oh my God, it's out of control. It's everywhere. Yes.
Is there nothing you can do to eradicate it? Isn't there some like natural, like herbicides?
The problem is like it's just everywhere, and you don't know it until it's too late because it's just mixed in with all the other stuff. And I've been doing a ton of work outside, tons and tons and tons of like mowing and weed whacking and stuff, right? So, um, like I would have to kill everything,
You
kill it
need.
all.
Well, I was gonna say. I mean, there is the scorched earth pots.
There is that possibility. Yeah,
Yeah.
light it up.
You know, you can have
Totally,
helicopters. Dun, 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 dun.
totally. Oh, it's kind of itchy, especially when this headphone wire keeps touching it. Put that behind me.
I would say, yeah, like loop, put it somewhere else.
Yeah. Jeez. So how long has it been since we like actually recorded one of these? It's been a few weeks.
Yeah,
A month? I
yeah,
don't even know. At least a month.
I think so. Yeah,
It's been a little bit going on.
busy for all, right?
I don't even want to
Yeah.
get into it, man. I don't.
No.
What, what do you got? What do you got for me?
Well, I will say, I get to start my first new project, and I say new as in like it wasn't one that I worked on and then went away from it and then came back to it
Oh,
because
that's right. You went on a 3 hour tour.
I did. I did. So I finally got put on a new project, probably mostly because I was whining about the fact that if we go after these projects, which we did, and we get them, which we did, and we get that particular project, I want to be on it. Like, please let me be on it. And I am. And so I mean, it's not a lot. In fact, it goes, you go from like doing the biggest project currently in the office. In fact, two of the biggest projects in the office, both budget wise and size wise, to probably one of the smallest projects in the office. Like, there's no comparison size wise. I mean, it's just like big fish in the sea to little teeny minnow. And you know what? I couldn't be happier to be on a little minnow project. I
I
need the
bet.
respite, but it is for the national parks, which me and my affinity for the national parks service. So
Hmm.
I was excited about that, and it is on Liberty Island. And for those of you who don't know what Liberty Island it is the little island in what is really, really interesting is the way that, like, the island itself is New York. Everything around it is New Jersey.
Right.
It's really weird.
Right.
Oh. But, is where the Statue of Liberty is.
Hmm.
And it is not dealing directly with the statue or the statue's base building, but it is one of the historic Art Deco buildings that support that. And it's probably going to turn into one of multiple phases of a project, fingers crossed, because it's really interesting. But we did a site visit, and I mean, come on, how cool is it to have your project site be at the footsteps of the Statue of Liberty?
Right.
And so anytime you come out of the building and look up, there she is. And what was even cooler is the offices for the park, because the park doesn't include it. It isn't just the Statue of Liberty or Liberty Island. It's also Ellis Island.
Mm.
And so all of their offices are on Ellis Island. And so we go and we have our like debrief meeting after doing our initial site visit and all that other stuff. We're talking about like, what have you seen? Is there any concerns that are, bigger than the program and all that other stuff?
Hmm.
And we're doing all of that in a boardroom on Ellis Island. Come on. Like history nerd me. I'm of course sitting there. It's just like, Cormac, huh? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was,
Yeah.
like, I forgot where I was,
Yeah.
or I'm
That's
just
cool.
in awe of where I was, which is just, you see all these buildings and you think of the millions of people who come through there, like all of our family histories,
Right.
have
Right.
come
Right. Right.
through there. And here we are sitting there, and I'm just like, I don't necessarily know if anybody else was like in awe of just the majesty of just, sitting in an area where, almost every immigrant, or at least a good portion of the immigrants who came to the U.S. came through that immigration point. It's
So
kind
have you done a bunch of that reading up on the history? Did you already know it? Like where because I don't know. I've
well,
never been to Liberty Island. I've never seen. I've seen the Statue of Liberty off in the distance, but it still
that's true.
hasn't been one of the destinations that I've gotten to when I've gone to New York several times. It's still on the list, of
Oh
course.
yeah.
But I'm just wondering, like when you're there, how much did you already know? How much did you have to do to prep to win this project? How much have you done since you've won the project, or is it just kind of like you already knew it, or what?
So what's funny is winning the project was the easy part because you get qualified. I mean,
Hmm.
there is no mystery behind this. It's like you get pre-qualified, and then if you get pre-qualified, you're on what is called a IDIQ, right?
Hmm.
It's that.
And what does that stand for?
I don't.
Something. Stands for something.
I'm literally blanking right now because I didn't think you were going to ask me. But basically,
This is acronym. This is a world of acronyms, so it's
yeah.
always good to kind of
And what's
dispel
funny
or
is that
figure out what they are.
now that I'm thinking about it, I could have. It's really easy, and now you've like totally brain
It's gone.
farted
The
me.
Q is for qualify, I'm guessing.
Um, but once you do get qualified, and once you do get put on the list, then you basically you're you're already kind of like creating you're already on the short list for projects that they post. And if you
Hmm.
choose to go after one of those projects, then essentially what you're doing is you're submitting your qualifications and your fees. And if they say, okay, Evan, we like your fees, Cormac, we don't really like your fees, we're going to go with Evan.
We like the lower fees.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. Who
Or,
has the
or,
lowest fee?
well, it's not even just that because I mean, they're all probably coming in. It's just like, okay. And then what team is there or what are their qualifications? And then you look at like the team that's built up and a lot of extensive work, preservation work and structural engineers and all of this other stuff.
So to get on the list, and you said that's the easy part, but not
Well,
really, right?
I
Because
won't,
like
yeah, I was going to say,
you have to be at a firm that actually has the qualifications to
yes,
be on a list
yes,
like that. And so
yeah, yeah,
it may be easy if there is a big reputation and a long history of doing certain project types within the last. This is another thing. It's like you have to
yeah.
have a certain number of project types in the last X number of years. Like it could be 5 years. So
Easy
it's
wasn't
not
really
it's
the
not
right
easy
word.
yeah, it's not the
Right,
right word,
right,
but
right.
for you it was easy because you
Well, I
worked
mean,
at
it's
you
just
worked
we,
at a
yeah,
firm that got on a list.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't like, they just asked me what kind of interest, if we go after this type
Hmm.
of client and this type of work, do you have any interest? Because I do have pretty extensive background in adaptive reuse and,
And the parks, like you love
and
the
the parks.
parks, like
Yeah.
you would
And
love
so,
to
and I was
participate
like,
in something like that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and yes.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so I didn't actually go after, fill out any of the forms or pull together the proposals and all that other stuff to actually get selected. So I'm only spitballing at,
You're riding the coattails, yeah.
exactly.
But
I'm right.
okay,
Yeah.
so my question though is okay, how much did you prep for or learn since like give us an idea of the timeline or of your Liberty Island nerdery, like the research side of things or what you're learning and things like that,
Oh,
because
I
I
mean,
know you do have a huge interest in the
oh
family
yeah.
genealogy side of things and like that as the gateway into the US and all that. You're fascinated
Well,
with that stuff.
I am. And honestly, there was a lot that I knew. And this is unlike you. I've actually been there a couple of times.
Okay.
And we've gone through Ellis Island. We've done the research to find like some of the family of my side that have come through that. You also know that half of like my family, like the Phelan side of the family, they came through Canada. and we're Canadians first. But it's all of it is interesting, like how it was used, how the different changes and things. And I was talking to one of the preservation architects that work for the park, and we were kind of like sharing knowledge. And it was interesting because like the newest person on the project from the park side of things was just an encyclopedia of knowledge of the park and of the island and of just like the whole process and stuff. And when I was talking to him, we were actually standing on the roof of the building that we're doing the preservation and renovations to. And he was just like, I kind of had to, because I'm the new guy and they're going to expect the new guy to not know anything. So I'm going to try to like know as much as I can. And as he and I were like walking around the building, I'm like, oh, and you know, like I familiarized myself with the building. I familiarized myself with the grounds. I familiarized myself with like the number of different construction periods on that particular building. And so it was kind of funny that somebody coming new to the project, me, and somebody who's new to the national parks, like we're the two newbies, and we knew more than most of the people who'd been working on there. Although there was this, oh God, this was amazing. The concession, you know, the concessionaire that runs the concessions and all of the different things on the actual island itself. He was an older gentleman, probably in his like maybe mid-70s, and his family has been operating the concessions for 90 years on Liberty Island.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so he knew
family business or what?
Yeah. Yeah. Because they don't run. I mean, obviously National Parks doesn't run the concessions. They lease the space.
They contract them out.
Yeah, they contract out. And they've just, they know everything. They know they know where all the skeletons are buried, everything else. And so, you know, and just kind of, they're the ones who are able to just like keep it running and keep it going and all of that other stuff. And it was just amazing to hear his stories. Like he said that he remembers being on the island when they were building the concession building, because it was mid-40s. And then they did an addition, and then they did another addition. He was talking more about the last edition, but he was telling me that his father, before basically being a concessions person, also worked on like the construction of a couple of the buildings on site. And so like, you know, he's just like, yeah, the building was here, but before they opened it up to the public, they realized that it doesn't really fit their needs. It needs to be bigger. And so they basically did an addition onto that. And so like basically 5 years later, before it officially opened to the public, because it was opened or it was built at the start of World War II and was,
wow.
And yeah, I mean, and like to listen to like all of like the world events of like what happened. It's like when somebody asks, why are there different color stones on the Washington Memorial? And people are like, oh, it must be this or this. It's just like, no, it was built up to a certain point, and then the Civil War happened, and then they stopped building, and then that quarry, it's a completely different stone that's going up on the rest of them. And it's kind of cool to like mark world events or national events by either construction techniques or
building materials,
or building materials, or or
sourcing and logistics. Yeah, because
even the addition switched its structural members from it was concrete beams, concrete plank, and then it transitioned. Just the little addition transitioned to a open web truss, and then the last edition, which was the 1985 edition. That was open web truss, but it was a completely different, it was a far more updated version of that one. And
technology has changed, right? Yeah.
Yeah, except for somebody decided to use ferrous metals, and there's some rust going.
People make some mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it'll turn out. Hey, I mean, my last house had galvanized pipes. Like, talk about, I think we've lived through that here on this podcast, where all of a sudden I had a radiant heat slab and I didn't know why. Right.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. They
Yeah,
did
there's been
burst.
mistakes made. Right.
Yeah.
So what is the project, man? You've been burying the lead. Can you talk about what the project is?
Yeah, yeah. So the 1941 Art Deco, it's kind of Deco modernish. It kind of like straddles it.
Like
Cons-
let's just take these words, slice them up, slap them
yeah.
together. There we go. We got
Um,
a new style.
we'll call it Deco concessions building. On
Hmm.
and it was built in an era where they were not ready. So they said that the peak for the year during when it was constructed was 20,000 people.
Hmm.
They can get that in a day.
Yeah, I
So
bet.
so if you can just imagine
So capacity that they could
so
fulfill is,
capacity,
oh my gosh.
they've got a temporary toilet facility, which is temporary
Oh my
slash
gosh.
permanent toilet facility. I mean,
It's just like schools that we've worked on too,
yeah,
right? Where it's like you work on some project that was not designed for current modern, let's just call it modern capacities in
yeah,
any way,
yeah.
because there was
Oh
no
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thought of how different things would be in the future. Like you're always
No,
kind of
no,
just
not at all.
designing things for the current state. And I mean, we try really hard to, and you've talked about a recent project where you're future proofing, and it's like
Yeah,
you just kind of roll your yeah, you just did it. You just
exactly,
literally did what I was saying at the same time. It's like
exactly.
people want that
Right.
kind of insurance or reassurance that that can actually happen, and it's like you can't. Nobody has the crystal ball here.
No, no. And when you kind of hope that construction technologies, and you've seen it. I mean, you've like, worked on renovation projects from. I saw one just on one project alone that was built in the original one was 1894, and then there was an addition at 1898, then there was another addition at 1905, and then the building next door was 1905, and then there was a 1930s edition, and then a 1930s edition to that one. Then there was a 1978 edition. Then there was a 1989 edition, and then comes Cormac, and he's connecting the two buildings together, renovating them completely, and having to deal with part of a building that has foundations, part of a building that has masonry mass at the bottom that is literally just the wall stops at 10 inches below grade. And
Good
you're
enough.
just like,
It was good enough
yeah,
at the time. The
yeah.
building has stood
And
the test of
and
time
you
in
look at
that
all like
state as well.
exactly. And you look at the different types of, and then you realize that at one point in time there was a fire in the building, and guess what they did? They left all of the burnt timbers there, and all of those other things.
Oh
And
my God.
you know, it
This is
was
what makes these things so interesting, right? Like this is what
I
makes
honestly,
a city like New York City.
yeah.
Like so we've seen
Yeah.
the news of like the line and these
Right.
various mega cities that are going to be from scratch and all of the affordances that could potentially come along with that. But there's something so interesting in the building up of an urban area over time and dealing with those constraints and what's been there before. Like they
Right.
got there first. Now we have to work around this stuff, right? And I think
Right.
that there's something so interesting about that as a problem solving
And
scheme
and
that we
that's
go through.
and that's the shame of these cities who, basically like during urban renewal and all these other ones, basically kind of clear cut their history
Right.
and, put up new. It's just like, oh, it's less important that we keep this. And thank goodness New York wasn't one of those, because what was kind of interesting is our hotel was down in the financial district, right near the Battery, right near the ferries that go to either Staten Island or wherever else, right? And we're walking around, and just a couple of blocks away still stands a tavern, which is still used today as a restaurant and tavern,
Mhm.
where George Washington gave his farewell speech to his troops.
And there's a plaque there.
Oh, there's a
Commemorating
plaque.
it.
Oh yeah, there's a plaque
There's
there.
a lot of George
And-
Washington plaques on
Yeah.
the East Coast.
But I mean, but the building is still there, and just to see like the character of this, and then the shiny little buildings around it, and you're only like just a few blocks away from the World Trade Center, and
yeah, there's
the
that
memorial
one
and all that.
storefront that's just tucked
Yeah.
in there, and it's
No,
always
it's-
been
yeah,
there, right?
Exactly,
Like,
and
just
it's been there before we've been there.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
for we as
It didn't get
the
tucked
country.
in at all. It was just
Yeah,
surrounded, right?
it was engulfed. It was engulfed.
Or
Yeah,
engulfed. There you
yeah.
go.
And that what's so funny is like it's like a couple of little blocks that are like that with these old buildings that have been there since the early 1700s. And because you're in this cavern of all of these high rises and stuff, and you walk around and you come into that space, it's kind of magical because it's like,
Yeah.
it literally is. Why am I blanking on the name of the alley? Was it Diagon Alley? In Harry
I don't know.
Potter? You know
Yeah,
that,
I'm not a huge Harry Potterer. So.
well, shameful.
What-
But
Yeah.
anyway, there was just this. It was almost like this little magical world that kind of lived outside of like everybody's like consciousness because it was like it's there, it's always been there,
Yeah.
but it was just
It's a hidden
like
gem.
I was
Yeah,
like, thank
yeah.
goodness this is still there. Because honestly, as many times as we've gone to New York, I never went down that far to the water to the tip of Manhattan and Battery Park and never really explored around there. And for me, it was just kind of exciting to like see the fabric of, again, the timeline of New York kind of developing from like that area, like the down at the very bottom where the fort is and all of these other things. And then just to kind of like see this evolution of a city that's become what it is today, which is crazy big and crazy
Yeah.
busy.
Right. I heard this. I was on a panel, and one of the comments that was made, it was about technology and architecture, and we were talking about various technologies and stuff. And one of the comments that was made, talking about what's coming next, and everybody always wants to know what's next, and but I thought one of the really interesting comments was that there will be a time, and so this was kind of a proclamation by another panelist. There will be a time when there won't be new projects. It'll just be reuse. We're going to go back. We're going to do adaptive reuse. And I thought that was, I actually kind of second guessed that because I'm thinking, and part of the context to the answer that they gave was that all of the software that we use now forces us to start from scratch. It forces us to start from, there's no good way to capture, and of course there are ways to capture existing conditions and context and things like that, but there isn't a good way to start quickly with that information because so many more projects that we're doing nowadays are adaptive reuse or renovations or the various versions of that, and so you have to do a bunch of work to get to the point at which you can begin doing your work on the project.
Yeah.
And then the statement was made that at some point we're not even going to have new projects to do. Like we have so much building stock, and this is where I started to question it because I've also heard conflicting information or proclamations about how we need to double the size of the building stock that exists in the world today by 2050, right? Because of populations. And so it's like, well, which one is it? and maybe I don't know when those timelines or when those two lines on the graph cross and it becomes, something different than it is. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I'm curious what you think about that, because now you're starting a project where you are taking an existing historical building that has a ton of history, and you have to do a ton of work to get to a point where you can begin to do the work that you need to do to do what you're going to do to the project. And so I'm curious how you guys are doing that, because I've been through that process before, and I would say I would probably approach it very differently now than we did back then, but technology has changed significantly in this respect to capturing existing conditions. So I'm just curious how you guys are going about that.
So there's the next steps, which is when we start to pull in the technology to like really do a lot of accurate depiction of the existing conditions. And right now, this is a pre-design phase where what we're essentially doing is saying, okay, we've gone on a site visit, we've documented a bunch of things and tried to pull a bunch of information, historical documents and drawings and all of the different upgrades and stuff and maintenance programs that they've done throughout the years. and sift through all of that to see what's been going on with the actual building throughout time.
Makes sense.
To
Makes
to
sense
just
of it all.
yeah
from
to
like
just create a
just
picture
like
of
yeah,
yeah
right.
yeah it's really just doing all of that to create a picture of what do we have, because then we can start to say what we can do, but we've got to really understand what do we have first.
And we
And
have to do this on every single project
oh yeah
in some fashion. It could just
yes
be property lines, it could be a flat ground plane, it could
oh yeah
be
yeah
surrounding buildings and streets and right of ways and utilities and surveys and all that stuff. But it is kind of like this is something else. You have to in detail, and I'm sure there's
yeah
going to be aspects of it that you're really going to have to document.
oh it's gonna be yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is like how you talked about we have the technology to document this, and we do. And I think about the first time that I had done a historic project in Revit, when Revit was in its infancy, and so was my knowledge about how to use it and everything else. And
Perfect storm, right?
and none of and at the time, you're right, like the software like Revit, it was designed for new buildings. It wasn't designed for historic buildings and stuff. So none of the
Yeah.
details, none of the cornices, none of the moldings, none of that
It's
stuff
really
existed.
difficult to do all that.
We
Right.
had to create every bit of that in, in detail, and draw every bracket, every copper conductor head and downspout. I mean, these were things that just didn't exist. There was no families for them. There were no people creating families for them. And now, because there's people who do like reproduction work and all of this other stuff, that because Revit or BIM is not going away, there are people out there that says, hey, if I want to get in front of the architect, I need to get this product into something that they can use, or they're going to continue to overlook me as a supplier. So I need to get it out to them so they know, and they can use it and say, hey, I specified the Evan Troxel copper colonial embossed
That's
eagle.
what I'm making now.
Yeah, exactly.
My side hustle.
Yeah. There you go. So, and so,
The Evan Troxel copper embossed colonial eagle
yeah,
supply
colonial
company.
eagle. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Anything colonial eagle, we can make it.
We could do it. Well,
And-
thinking about like laser scanning and photogrammetry, like there's there's tech that'll do this. And I think what's interesting is like these old buildings they've moved, they've shifted, they've cracked, they've peeled, things have fallen off. The weather's taken a toll. Things weren't built perfectly straight. I mean, when you start from scratch, you draw everything in 90-degree angles for the most part, right? And I've lived, and you as well have lived in houses where that is not the case, and that's the simplest example. And so they go out and they document. You'll send a team out to laser scan this building to get the as built into, it's a point cloud that goes into Revit, and then you start to trace over that, or you may have the same consultant who you send out there to do the scanning, do a scan to BIM kind of conversion. I've been through that process before where the consultant modeled it so exactly that you couldn't dimension to your new walls, right? Because Revit complains if you have one wall that's slightly off axis, and it'll tell you. It's happy to complain about that, right? And then you try to dimension to your new wall, and you can't do it. And so then you have to start negotiating with the scan to BIM people about how you want that stuff. And this is the overhead of dealing with this kind of technology, right? It's like, well, I need it to be usable, but I also need it to be accurate. And so then you start to do trade-offs internally of okay, we're just going to make all the walls straight so that we can put dimensions on them versus get accuracy. And it's this constant negotiation is happening throughout the project when you are dealing with old renovations and remodels and rehabs and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah. No, I remember one time on that multi-era project, I was just rattling off all of the different dates. And so all of the documentation that they gave us, all of the survey information and everything else that they had given us had shown that the two buildings that we were connecting together were perfectly parallel to each other. And so
And you knew they weren't. Right?
I mean,
There's no way. Like, what are the chances?
True. Well, so we did have to go off on some assumptions because there were certain things that
Yes.
they, as a school board who didn't want to pay for extra surveys because they already had surveys done, and these surveys should still be good, right? The buildings haven't moved, so
We
they should be
don't want
good.
new information. We don't
And
want conflicting new information.
yeah. And so so we designed everything, we detailed everything, and everything was, the document wise, like all of like the expansion joint between the buildings and all of that other stuff were different.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on in the document. Then fast forward to construction, and the steel guy comes out and they do their own survey of that because they're verifying there's everything.
Verify in field. Yeah.
And so exactly, they verified in field. And so what did they find out? That the building was 4 feet out of skew from each other.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
And by the way, that we could either sacrifice our egress corridor, the program space, which of a classroom, or slightly generous sized egress stairs. Something would have to give. And guess what?
That was the one.
That was the one. It's like, that was the
one. You have to choose the least worst option.
Exactly.
Right, in times like those. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it was this, I always use this as an example of we can't not push for new current surveys of
Accurate
everything.
Surveys.
Because, if you're saying, oh yeah, this 1992 survey, it should be good. Well, it's 1992 technology. We can get more exact now.
You kind of just want to know it all up front. I mean, you really need to know so that you can make, hopefully, smart decisions about the trade-offs.
Exactly.
Because you do have to do that. That's the entire architectural process in a nutshell. It's just trade-offs. Right.
Yeah.
So you guys are going to be renovating this building and bringing it up to more modern standards to handle higher capacities, more technology in the food service, bathrooms, stuff like that?
We're in the stage of determining what level of renovations we can and can't do.
So there's going to be like a whole menu, and then there's going to be budget items attached to those, and then you're going to play the game of like, here's what we can afford to do.
But see, there's the menu, but then there's the percentage of alterations that you do based off of that. And the higher the percentage, you get to 50% or over, you're going to be triggered into doing a full code revision.
Right.
And
right.
I'm going to tell you right now, this building ain't going to, there's so many spaces that just is incapable of meeting code. So, it'll be a little bit more strategic. The biggest thing is that the limestone panels that make up the facade. So it's a veneered wall, and it was very indicative of that type of construction at that period where you'd have the masonry wall, and then you would have the stone veneer with zero to no land, like air gap between. And you'd have your brick ties and everything else. And then of course, what is the coping? The coping is a stone coping, not metal flashing or anything like that to separate it. So to prevent any water from weeping through there. And I don't know if you might, but I don't know but stone like limestone is a bit porous, right? And then it gets back behind there, and then I've
done the rock climbing on the limestone. It has it had a lot of streaking. Yeah.
And and so
water just comes out where it wants to come out.
Yeah, so there's a lot of delamination. It's very similar to you see this detail used way too often, and you see that if you just would have done like there's got to be flashing in there. There's got to be a separation between the coping and the water infiltration into because it was grouted in, it was weird. It's weird, but it was failing. And so that was really where the project starts is like, there are things we do need to fix from the renovation side, the preservation side. And then there are things that we or saying, okay, well, you need to do this because of this, that, the other. And so, like, they've got this one egress door in the basement storage that you look on the plans, it's this nice clean opening, right? You stand in front of it and it looks
And then
like
there's
somebody
reality.
it looks like somebody just chewed through the wall because all of the it's like instead of looking like a nice rectangle with hard edges and stuff and a lintel over it, right? For
Yeah.
you come through and it's just like it's kind of like somebody like pushed through it and the rebar's hanging down and you got to duck so you don't get hoping that you're updated on your tetanus
You
shot.
don't get scalped.
Exactly, you don't get skipped. And and then like the jams are the same way and you can see like exposed steel and all of that other stuff and you just like
A literal hack job.
a literal hack job, yeah. And you're just
Right.
like, yeah, this is why the kind of like doing kind of like visit the photo survey, like the not just photo survey, the like LiDAR or the
the point cloud scan.
the point cloud scanning. Yes, thank you. Where that is necessary because those are the things that you can still verify. Okay, yeah, there's an opening, but now you can verify what that opening is, how it actually looks, because we're going to have to come back and fix it.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to. You send out the intern with a tape measure and a clipboard, right? And they can just go measure it and take some photos, and you'll be good, right? And it's a close.
Oh, yeah,
it's not a long trip to get out on the island from the office, right? So it's no big deal to send them back a few times to get those extra photos and whatever's needed because they didn't look in the right direction. They didn't measure right or whatever. How come these dimensions aren't adding up? Yeah.
Yeah. So where we're at now is we're basically taking all of the documents that we have, trying to verify the dimensional accuracy, building kind of a base model to start with. To then, and the thing is that I had to like walk through some of the people who are working on the project and building the model right now. They didn't go out with us, and so they're like, I can't make any sense of like what this building is or what this wall should be. I'm like, I was like, that's 2 walls.
We
And
did
like,
that for this really old project where we just took all the laptops out there and we were just building the model in place because of that.
Yeah. Well, I
this
think
was before point cloud scanning and this was before 3D scanning.
Well, even that I did kind of like suggest doing a little bit of old schools. Let's build it the way that we see it in all of the documents, and then let's get back out there and do a lot of verification.
What it's really like.
Exactly. Work through like, what does this mean? What does that mean? And kind of
point cloud. I would not do a project ever without a 3D scan nowadays. If you're going to be building on an existing building, because you get the photographs for free with that. There's all these 360 degree spherical photos. You can look everywhere. I mean, it sucks when there's a bunch of junk in the room, for sure. And there usually is a bunch of junk in the room, and you can't see into all the corners, and you can't see where all the outlets are, and you can't see where a lot of stuff is. But you have more information than you would ever get the old way of doing it. Right. And you don't have to send anybody back 5 times because you really do get a legitimate, accurate representation of what's there with all the junk in it.
I think I might still have on my phone because you had suggested kind of a point cloud. Wasn't it through Rhino? The
iRhino 3D, if you're on their beta, which you can get on for free, you can get their room scan. And it does point cloud scanning, but that's really for objects, not for spaces. So the room scan does rooms, and then there's Polycam, which is a great app for this kind of thing if you have a LiDAR phone. But it's not like a true point cloud scan. I mean, it's good enough for some things, but it's not like a real point cloud scan.
That was it. It was Polycam that you hit because I do have, and I remember scanning the room I'm in right now. And I was just like, look how cool this is. And
it's cool.
Yeah, and those are things. And it's right here.
It's right there.
But it's in my hand right now. But yeah, and it's kind of cool. It's amazing because even with that, though, there are some things that you're never going to find in a historic building. Here we are, we're sitting there, and I had to get up. So, like, we went into what was at one point in time an old restroom that is now turned into an electrical room and partial mechanical room, because having a water heater and electrical panels in the same room are a good idea.
You do what you got to do. That's what
yeah.
you do.
Yeah. Exactly. And we were looking, and people are like, "Oh, okay." And then this is the wall, and oh, is it just a concrete or a concrete block backup behind the tile?
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Well, so then we gain access to a ladder and like kind of like crawl up there, and how like in electrical rooms they like to put the plywood up on the walls. Well, they had this plywood kind of like standing off of the wall, so I could kind of see in between them. And they basically, and nowhere in any documents does it actually say that they did this, but somebody decided to completely open up. So they had a small window on one side, and then nothing. There was but they opened up the entire wall and then put in basically probably some steel angles and a plate to kind of like stabilize the wall and hold the angles in place. And then they just infilled with CMU. But there's no rationale on why they did that. It's just like, and nobody knows,
it's
and nobody could figure that. Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody knows why they actually removed it. It wasn't, there was no reason to remove it. And it's
nobody
part of a
does
sandwich.
as-built.
Yeah.
Because as-built are a luxury. Nobody wants to pay for that. It's like, it's done. No, I'm just going to use the space. I don't have extra money laying around to do that process, right? So,
I don't know. Maybe I've been a little bit spoiled because almost every project that I've worked on, they've done as-built.
Well, at some point they kind of became contractual, right? And but early, it was always an add-on.
Back then, no.
Yeah,
back then. I mean, the one adaptive reuse project that we did at Wash U in St. Louis, they built a building over basically the remains of other buildings, and they had documents who said that, we demoed this building and that building. And so there's nothing there. It's just free and clear. And then of course, here we are, we're excavating, and what are we doing? We're running into abandoned walls and all of these other things below grade. And they're like, oh yeah.
They swept it under the rug is what they did right there.
Well, what was funny is they're like, oh yeah, I think we've got drawings that show that we abandoned in place these. Like,
we'd like those drawings. How about
Thanks for waiting until construction to inform us that.
Oh yeah, like nothing rang that bell earlier when we were talking about this project. or
a cross. So there was like a utility tunnel underneath that we were building over the top of, and so we knew that one perfectly fine. But apparently there was a tunnel over the tunnel that everybody neglected to tell us. And, of course, here we are. Yeah. And then as we were doing demo work for it, to make way for this new plaza and stuff, and this big terraced stairs and everything else, we discover it's like, hey, by the way, did you know that there's a tunnel that goes perpendicular to the other tunnel that we knew was there, that was a service tunnel from the loading dock to the library? And then there was another one, which was just a utilities tunnel between the two, but they just kind of like dug underneath it. And then it's just like I think I remember that. Like, you think you remember it, but you think you could have remembered it a little sooner.
You think you could have told us? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you're in the honeymoon phase of a new project. You're excited about the possibilities.
I am.
These projects never go. What you will finally get is nothing like what anybody thinks right now, right? That's how this is the nature of these kind of projects.
True.
When this project is over, I mean, it would be great to do a comparison of, and because I don't know that we ever do this. It's like we just look forward, right?
True.
But there's like all of these dreams and visions of what could be, and questions, and more questions than answers, right? And then there's like, if we do this, it changes the path. And if we do this, it changes the path. And if we do this, it
Right.
changes the path. And there's so much path changing along the way that it
Oh
turns
yeah.
out to be something completely different than what
Oh
anybody
yeah.
thought
Yeah.
it was going to be. And this is what architects are actually really good at.
Yeah, because I always ask or try to ask the what if we do this? What if we do that? Think about this. And I today we had another adaptive reuse project with the building for Hopkins. We were in a meeting talking about some changes for mechanical systems and going from one system to another already post construction, and we're changing the use of certain areas, which leads to more supply demand. And so we're like, okay, well, the current capacity of the
You're not talking
equipment
about
that we've already got.
economics, right?
No. So we're
Supply
talking
demand is that's a new thing for
Yeah.
some people.
just air conditioning. Like,
There you go.
you know, we designed it first, for an open office space, not for like conference rooms and stuff. And now they're thinking about doing conference rooms and higher capacity spaces and things like that. And so we were coming up with multiple options of what we can do. Some of them have major impacts on the program spaces that they're looking at doing, and some have like minimal or no impact on the program spaces. And so then we're creating just this menu of, it's just like, okay, here's the least impactful to here's the most impactful. And some of those spaces they're going to shell out, but we're going to suggest that they still build them out so that we, and just the thinking about it is just like, I want to tell them as much information as I can now about the worst case scenario. Because if they go that route, which they probably in a way should, but if they go that route, everything that they do to those floors in the future is going to be affected by this decision. And so they need to know, it's like, okay, if you do this is like, what are your ramifications?
And to
I
map
think
all that out ahead of time is tricky.
And I think that is a great gift that architects have, is the understanding of the decisions that you make and how they can impact the future, future use, future planning, future program, future renovations, future additions later on down the road. I mean, there's all sorts of different things. I mean, hell, this building has increased structure at a certain location because they're anticipating in the future across the street, they were going to build another medical building, a medical high-rise building across from it, but they wanted to put a bridge between the two. Well, we designed for
So
the
you're
bridge.
ready for that.
Yeah, so we're ready for we're ready for a bridge.
Yeah.
It's all these crazy things that you just think about in advance, and they may or may not ever use it, but that structure is ready, willing, ready and able to accept a
We'll
bridge.
build the suit. Yeah, build the suit.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for your new honeymoon phase. Honeymoon phase on a project doesn't last forever, but hopefully this
doesn't.
project it pays
But
off for
these
you.
are,
I'm excited for you.
and the cool thing is that these are sort of short burn projects for each of the different phases, and then it's kind of like onto another one, and just these like discovery the discovery phase of like, ooh, it's almost like treasure hunting, exactly,
Totally.
and that just I mean, I needed a little bit of ooh in my projects lives.
Totally. Cool, man. Well, can't wait to get the updates as we move forward here. That'll be fun.
All right. I'll be happy to share them to you because, whether there's a NDA or not, I think I just disclosed everything. So
You just broke it.
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for your service.
See ya.